Good day. My name is Bill Snow. I'm the Acting Director of Consultation for Stoney Tribal Administration. Out here at the Opal Day Use area in Kananaskis. The Stoney Nakota Nation completed a study on grizzly bears here in Kananaskis, and we talked about specifically the Galatea Creek area and the importance of that place for grizzly bears and for the Stoney people. And it was our first report to talk about cultural monitoring and to talk about some of the other cultural issues that we have regarding grizzly bears here in the Kananaskis. The reason why we got that study started was that there were incidents occurring at the Galatea Creek area between trail users and grizzly bears. And we wanted to contribute in our own explanation as to why that was happening from a cultural perspective. Charlie Rabbit, one of our elders at Stoney Nakota, talks about the encroachment of man into Kananaskis country. He talks about the bears and how they're territorial. He talks about how the bears really guard their bear lines and how those lines are places where they use for food and forage and water sources. And some of the areas out here in Kananaskis are proving grounds for young grizzly bears and young bears in general. And so overall the message is that we need to be respectful of grizzly bears, give them their space, especially at these important times of year like now in the spring when a lot of them are waking up from hibernation and will be coming into more contact with them, and they'll be hungry. Some of the report recommendations that we talked about in 2016 are they need to do ceremonies, they need to do cultural monitoring, the need for cultural awareness, and we also talked about restricted activity and restricted development. One of the recommendations that we also talked about was connectivity. I was pleased to see that the government of Alberta is going to be building a wildlife overpass across the Trans-Canada Highway, and we've been working with Alberta Transportation on that project. So it's very encouraging to see that, so that we don't continue to have incidents with grizzly bears along the highway corridors. Grizzly bears have not only an environmental function on the landscape, but a cultural function. And so for them to pass over the highway safely, not only grizzly bears, but ungulates like deer and elk and moose and all the other animals, for them to travel over safely the highway barriers, it's something good that they can travel safely. Then they can do all of those environmental and cultural functions on these landscapes. I believe it will add to the biodiversity of the landscapes out here in Kananaskis, and it'll be good for the landscape and for the grizzly bears themselves. Some of these places that we've identified in the 2016 report, places like Galatea Creek, are sacred to the grizzly bears. And so that's why we've asked for these types of recommendations in and around the Galatea Creek area. Although not all of these recommendations have been implemented, we're still hopeful to work with parks and other trail users and park users to see how we can expand the cultural awareness that needs to happen, not only with Parks Alberta, but with all the visitors that come here to Kananaskis country. In 2021, Stoney Nakoda has been in contact with Environment Canada, or now known as Environment and Climate Change Canada. And we've been able to secure funding through ECCC to do a follow-up grizzly study. And we are looking at areas in South Kananaskis, in the Elbow River area and the Highwood Pass and possibly other areas. For this study, we would be looking to do the cultural monitoring process for this study, and we'd be looking to partner up with Parks Alberta as well as the University of Calgary and their Biogeoscience Center. Our study would be looking at effects of grizzly bear behavior, grizzly bear habitat in those areas, and we would also be talking to our elders and knowledge keepers about the impacts of those areas, and we would be asking them for their interpretation of what should be happening next. So we're very excited to be part of that study, and we are hoping to commence that this spring, do some field work throughout the year, and then also complete a final report hopefully by spring of 2023, along the same lines that we've done in some of our other wildlife studies.